1 Edward 1029, copy, threatening traffic.
Copy, moving route.
Edward 1029, if you could please respond to 2020 McNeil Street, Lake.
Copy. If you still have run on, give the ATO information first.
Welcome to Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. I'm Casey Clark, Navajo County Sheriff.
And I'm Brad Carlyon, your Navajo County Attorney.
And on our show today, we have Carrie Pill, Manager of Clinical Services. Welcome, Carrie, and thanks for being here today. When I say Manager of Clinical Services, can you tell me what that is?
Well, I work with Community Bridges,
Okay.
and we have several different programs throughout the state of Arizona. And I manage this clinical services for all of our rural sites, or the sites that are outside of Maricopa County.
What is Community Bridges? What type of services do they provide?
Community Bridges provides substance abuse and general mental health treatment to people who are on access, who don't have insurance. We help get them hooked up with insurance. We also serve people who have private insurance. We have several different types of programs, going from crisis detox programs all the way to outpatient programs.
The Sheriff's Department, the County Attorney's Office, and the Health Department in Navajo County were really happy to team up with yourself and Community Bridges to provide a new substance abuse treatment program in Navajo County. Can you tell us about that?
We are really honored to be part of this program and to contract with Navajo County. We feel very spoiled by Navajo County. The Sheriff's Department and the legal, the probation, the judges have really been very cooperative with us, and we feel very spoiled. What we did is we came together to develop a program. We found that substance abuse, we have people who tend to be repeat offenders and to keep coming back to the jail because of substance abuse issues. And so we decided to, with the county, provide treatment to the inmates while they are in jail, so that when they are released, they have had at least 90 days of what we would term residential treatment. So we go to the pod and we pick them up in the morning, and they come and we do a morning check-in. We eat lunch with them. We have a little group room inside the jail, and then all day long we do our different groups, and then at the end of the day we do a checkout. And the inmates have actually asked for homework to take back to the pods, so they'll take their homework back to the pods and share it with their fellow inmates, which makes them curious about the program and ask about the program and start to want to be part of the program.
Yeah, Casey and I have talked for years about the substance abuse issues in Navajo County, and one of our biggest weaknesses in combating it is the lack of a residential treatment program. So we were glad we were able to come up with this idea and find somebody such as Community Bridges to partner with. So you've talked about the 90-day, up to 90-day, basically inpatient treatment in the jail itself. What happens after they're done with your residential program and released from jail? What is the next step in what you provide?
The next step is our what we call an intensive outpatient program, which is a minimum of 9 hours of treatment with our counselor outside of the jail.
I assume that's every week.
That is weekly.
Okay.
Yes, 9 hours a week. Thank you for clarifying that. We also have what we call a peer navigator, who he helps people to navigate, to find housing, to find jobs, to get put back on access, to find AA meetings, to connect with the community, find PCPs, whatever they need.
PCPs?
Primary care physicians.
Okay.
So that they can ensure that they stay healthy. So our navigator just kind of helps them navigate the system once they're released from jail, because the jail culture is very different from the culture outside of jail, and many of our patients have been very acclimatized to the jail culture, and so they have a navigator to help them navigate and blend back into the community and how to negotiate the community.
So this program, we've been going about maybe 9 months now.
Started in June.
So June, okay.
Yeah.
So
About 7 months.
7 months. So how many folks have come through the program, the 90-day treatment in the jail, approximately, or
Roughly, we've had about 15
15?
who are still there and who have graduated.
So graduated.
Graduated to our intensive outpatient. And we
Okay.
actually have a couple who have graduated, who have stepped down from the intensive outpatient to just once a week. And some have completely completed the program, and we just check in with them on a monthly basis.
And they're doing well.
They have jobs, they're living independently, they have sober and clean friends. They're doing very well.
Have we had any relapses yet?
No.
So, and I know it's a short time sample, but that's a positive, even though it's only over the 7-month period. Who all is eligible for this? You know, Casey has talked on this show numerous times that roughly on any given day, 70% of the jail inmates have a substance abuse problem while they're there. And how many jail inmates do you have on an average day?
About 359 today.
So we'd have a lot of people we could send your way, but there must be some type of process you do to determine who to take in and who we're not ready to take in yet. What is that process?
We receive referrals from probation. We receive referrals from drug court. We receive referrals from the judges who kind of have the defending attorney send out the referral. We've actually had the inmates themselves ask to join the program, and so we direct them how to get the appropriate referral.
And there's a screening type of process, because one of the things that Casey and I talked to you and CBI was about is we didn't want a coexisting mental health issue. We wanted just to be a substance abuse issue. So are you screening for those type of things?
Correct. The American Society of Addiction Medicine has 6 dimensions that we can assess people on. And their withdrawal potential, are there any medical conditions that might interfere with their ability to participate in treatment? Are there any behavioral health or mental health issues or cognitive issues that might interfere with their ability to engage in treatment? Where are they ready to change? Are they wanting to change, or are they just doing it because they're bored and they want something to do while they're in jail? What is their potential? Do they have any skills? Have they ever been clean and sober before? What kind of skills do they have? What kind of support systems do they have? And then what are their discharge plans?
So when you talk about discharge, so this program is you have to be, when you look at them, they need to be there 90 days.
It's a requirement that they're there for a minimum of 90 days.
And so we've talked about people that then left and went back into the community. What about folks that are, they're waiting for trial, and maybe it's a prison sentence. So if they do the 90 days with you, and then they go off to the Department of Corrections, is there the CBI, or is there any program there for them to continue on, or?
No, we don't have anything in the prisons at this time.
Okay.
What we do, though, is if somebody is put like in a prison, we give them our CBI card and our phone number, so that when it comes time for them to be released, they call us and we arrange to connect them back with community bridges so that they have a continuing care, so that they're not just discharged from prison without having any kind of support.
So this program that we've developed with the help of CBI and yourself, it's one of the first in the state with CBI in a county jail, isn't it?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Kind of a pilot program.
Yes.
And so far it's been really...
We have been really amazed with the outcomes. When we first interviewed them and we selected them to be part of our program, we have 4 evidence-based measurements that we use to kind of see what a baseline is, where they're at. And then on every month,
So what are those 4 measurements you're looking at?
2 of them come from the model done by Grinstad under the Synapse. It's a nationally based, evidence-based program for denial management and substance abuse treatment. And so we use 2 of their measurement programs
Is it
to
something
see.
that me as a layperson would understand what you're looking at?
Yeah, basically what we're looking at is how are you doing physically?
Okay.
You know, because when people use substances, it really does a lot of harm to their bodies. And so we want to see how are you doing physically. A lot of times they don't seek treatment for physical health, and so that's one of the areas we want to have them.
Your PCP, your primary care
Our primary
physician,
care, we
okay.
also work very closely with the jail to make sure that they get the treatment that they're needing in the jail, so that we can start them on the pathway to
So
health.
one baseline is their physical well-being.
There's 4 categories.
Okay.
The physical, then we also look at the social. Where are you at on you're having healthy social connections? How are you doing on being able to express your emotions appropriately instead of yelling and screaming at a judge when he tells you things
Well,
he
we
doesn't
never
want to
do that.
hear?
Never do that.
No, never. How to appropriately ask for things that we need, how to express. So we teach them interpersonal skills
Okay.
so that they can, once they're released, they can start to build those bridges with their families that they've lost because of the substance abuse. We also measure them on spirituality, not necessarily, Christian only. It's just what is your higher power? How are you? Like we've gotten to work with a lot of Native Americans, and they've been able to connect back to their cultural beliefs and their Native American religions. And so we rate them on how are you doing on that? How are you feeling at peace with yourself and with the universe, with your God, with your higher power? Let's see, physical, social, and then we also have them rate themselves on psychological. Because as people use substances, they oftentimes, especially when they're getting clean and sober, they experience, in part of their withdrawal, they experience depression and anxiety, which is only natural because when you're putting a substance into your brain is very efficient, and it says, hey, I don't have to do this work. And so it quits making the neurotransmitters. And so once the substance is no longer being put into the brain, it takes the brain a little bit to start kicking in and making those neurotransmitters again. And so a lot of our patients, on the first 3 months, they have what we call post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which basically means they have a mushy brain.
I can understand that as a layperson. So that's a good one.
They're easily distracted. They have a hard time staying focused. They have a difficult time remembering things. They have increased anxiety. They can experience depression. Especially, they can experience a lot of loneliness and hopelessness because the only people they associated with were substance users. And we're telling them, in order to stay clean and sober, you have to completely leave your past lifestyle. That's very frightening.
Sure.
So
when you
go ahead.
So when we talk about substance abuse, people in your program, whether it's drugs, alcohol, it's the gamut. It doesn't have to be just drugs or.
Just alcohol, no.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got this baseline that you measure as they come in. Now the treatment program itself, I would assume it addresses some of those issues.
Yes.
What exactly is your treatment program? What's your methodology, and why does it work?
Well, everything is evidence-based, which means that it has been researched for many years through doing psychological trials, and it has shown that it makes a difference. And so one that we use is we teach people how to make goals for a day. What are your goals today? What skills are you going to use today that we've been teaching you? And so they have to come up with goals at the beginning of the day. These are my goals for the day, and this is how I'm feeling, and these are the skills that I'm going to use to address how I'm feeling. And then we talk about denial management. which is a huge part. Well, denial is a human condition. We all experience denial. That's how many of us make a New Year's resolution?
Right.
And how many of us are still doing that New Year's resolution that we made in 2015?
I already,
It's not that
this
big a
year.
deal.
today's the 6th, and I've already broke mine. So
Exactly. And so it's not that big of a deal. So that's just kind of normal for all humans. So we kind of normalize that for them so that we take a lot of the shame, because there's a lot of shame associated with substance abuse. And so that takes the shame. So we talk about the denial patterns with them, and we help them pick out what are the ones you use? What are the types that you use the most? And so that they can identify when they're in denial and when they're using these patterns to avoid facing a problem. And then we help them, another one of our groups, we help them actually develop a relapse prevention program. So if this happens, if I'm confronted with this, I can do this. If this doesn't work, I can do this. If this doesn't work, then I can do this. If this doesn't work, then I can do this. So that they have a whole list of coping skills that they can use, or activities, healthy activities and hobbies and work that they can engage in that will prevent them from following the urge to use.
So they have some options that they built into them. They built themselves in.
Yes, they have selected, these are the skills that work for me. And then we help them adapt those skills to themselves. I always like to tell them the story of my husband is a strong, burly construction worker. And he used 12-pound sledgehammers. And as those who are familiar with it, they have a huge fulcrum so that you can get all of that physics behind it, so that you can have more power when you're using it. Well, he didn't need all that fulcrum because he was so strong, and so he cut it and used it as a regular hammer. Well, that just made the tool totally useless to me.
Right.
And so we talk to our patients about how they need to adapt these tools that we're teaching them to themselves so that it makes them effective for them. So what might work for one person may not work for another. We may need to adjust it. And so we work with them while we're in the program with them on adjusting that. And how can we have them practice the skills. And it's really exciting because they'll come back. I was there last month checking in and sitting in on one of the groups, and one of the inmates talked about how he went back to the pod, and another inmate who was not part of our program started to kind of egg him on to kind of get him to fight. And he said, I just used my skills that you guys taught me and walked away, and I didn't feel bad about walking away. In fact, he felt more courageous in walking away. And he said where in the past, he would have felt like he was a chicken had he not engaged in the fight. And he was able to maintain his emotions and not respond and realize, I'm more powerful walking away. And so it was really
That's impressive.
Yeah.
very impressive. And they come back daily with stories of how they've used these skills. A lot of our patients have started using on an average of 13 years old or younger. And when people start to use substances, they're arrested socially at that age. And a lot of our patients come from homes that were not supportive. It's just kind of a generational substance abuse. Yeah. And so a lot of them are emotionally arrested at an even younger age. They weren't taught how to label their emotions. They weren't taught how to appropriately express them and deal with them and cope with them. So we teach them, how do you deal with this emotion? You're going to have these emotions. They're human. They're normal. How are you going to deal with them appropriately instead of using to run and hide from them? We teach them interpersonal skills on how do you talk to somebody where you can maintain your own dignity and respect, but you also can maintain the relationship and get what you want by not being emotional and demanding, but by being negotiating. So we teach them the interpersonal skills. We also teach them how to tolerate distress. There are things in this life that we cannot change, that we have to learn to accept. It is what it is. And so we teach them what we call radical acceptance skills on how do I accept these things I can't change? How do I deal with it? Because it's going to cause me some emotional discomfort. So how do I deal with that emotional discomfort without using? How do I do, what healthy coping skills can I do to let that go? Which is a difficult thing for everybody, is to let that go when we can't change something. So that's kind of basically, we're teaching them to stay in what we call the wise mind, which is a balance between our emotional mind, which whenever, we've all experienced people who are being driven by their emotions, and they're very uncomfortable to deal with and interact with. We've also seen people who are very robotic, and it's like, don't you have any compassion whatsoever? And so we're teaching them to kind of combine their mind and their heart and have them work together in making decisions. We teach them how to problem solve. We teach them how to make pros and cons lists. If I do this to stop, before I make the decision or act, if I do this, what are the consequences going to be? If I don't do this, what are the consequences are going to be? What are the positives going to be if I don't do this? And so that they can make a plan, so they stop instead of acting impulsively.
So how many people are in the program as of today that are in the county jail?
That are in the county jail? If I remember correctly, we have between 11 and 13 who are currently actually in the inpatient in the county jail program.
And that's about the limit you can take at a time in the jail?
It varies. We're flexible. The gentlemen that we work with are very, very respectful and very engaging. So basically our limit really is room size.
I know that whenever I walk through there and I see the room, it just looks like everybody in there is just having a great time. I mean, they're laughing, they're studying, they're smiling, and it's a stark contrast in that little pod compared to some of the other pods I go to. But it looks like everybody's really doing well in there.
I have a great therapist, and I have my peer navigator is really, he actually used to reside in the Navajo County jail for a couple of times. So he has a little bit of credentials with the inmates, because when they go, nah, he can go, oh, wait a minute, guys, been there, done that.
Right.
And when they start to question, how are these skills useful? He goes, I'm teaching these skills to my kids. Yeah. And so that really makes them kind of buy in more to it. They're very creative. If you'll notice, there's drawings all over the place. We don't just sit there and lecture. We're interacting with them all the time, quizzing them. What do you think? You tell me what you think. Okay, tell me a situation and how that you have in your life. Now, what skill are you going to apply to it? We actually role play with them. And we use any kind of tool we can. We use art therapy. We use play therapy to engage them, so that, if we're in a class for 6 hours, we've all been to a training where we sat for 6 hours and the lecturer was up there like the Charlie Brown guy, teacher, wah, 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 wah. Right. And given that they're still a lot in the post-acute withdrawal, we need to be really creative and get them physically involved and emotionally, mentally involved. And so we change tasks quite often throughout the day in what we're doing to present the material so that they stay engaged.
Is your intensive outpatient program much different than the residential treatment program?
They get the same material that they're getting in. So no matter where you go in Community Bridges, you are getting the same evidence-based material that we're using. So what we use in the jail is the same thing we use in our intensive outpatient, is the same that we use in just our regular outpatient and in our therapy.
So are the people in the outpatient programs coming in and saying, here's a real life problem I have right at the moment, can you help me work through best ways to resolve?
Yes, in our intensive outpatient program, we say, okay, here, what issue are you having? Okay, now, and then everyone in the group gets together and they all help this person problem solve on what skill, or they say, I tried to use this skill and it didn't work. It was just like, I wasn't effective at using it. And so all the group members say, well, did you try this? Did you try this? As well as in our intensive outpatient, we have peers who have been there and done that also. And so they're able to say, hey, tell their story and say, well, this worked for me. Have you tried this? And so there's a lot of support where they're saying, this is a problem I'm having, and we help them problem solve it.
Well, Carrie, it's been a real pleasure having you on today. You have one more question?
Just one more. We're finally getting graduates. Are we tracking them? And
Yes, sir.
And how are we tracking them? And do they have any additional support in case they run into a problem and need that help again?
Yes, we continue to track them. Those who have totally and completely graduated from the program, we go out and meet with them at least once a month. And we use the same tools that we use to see, are you continuing to make progress, the ones I explained at the beginning. So we still monitor them on the tools so that we're monitoring that they're continuing to make progress. They have the phone number to our outpatient, our jail diversion counselors have a cell phone so that if anyone runs into trouble or anything, they can call that. They can go to the SRU.
SRU is another
It's our
acronym.
Stabilization Recovery Unit.
Okay.
That's in Winslow, and so they can go there and get some additional support. So they have an access to Carlyon 24 hours, 7 days a week that they can call. So they have access to us whenever they need to talk to us.
Well, Carrie, again, thank you for coming on today. I could listen to you for another hour on this. I think it's something that Brad and I have really looked at over the years, that we need to do something different than what we've been doing. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Sholo TV for Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. Now stay tuned for our Most Wanted.
Today's Most Wanted is James Edward Gibbs. Last known address 420 Snyder Avenue in Winslow. His date of birth is February 20th, 1978. James Edward Gibbs is wanted for questioning in relation to a sexual offense. The victim reported she was physically and sexually assaulted multiple times by the suspect over the course of several years. The suspect has possibly moved to Indiana. If you know the location or have any other information about James, please contact your local police department or call the sheriff's office at 928-524-4450 or contact WeTip to remain anonymous.